Welcome to Fantasy Ambush. I am one of your hosts, Trevor Blanchard, and with me is
You're the host, Paul. Eh, eh.
it's Paul. All right. We are back. It is still August 31st. We just got done doing our top five wide receivers and tight ends, and now we get to the thing that Paul has been waiting to do for the past at least 2 days. Talk about NFL roster cuts. If you are with us on YouTube, you can see my nice little background is NFL roster cuts. And
Hey,
you know, Paul is sporting the Golden Gate Bridge.
yeah,
That what
yeah,
we're looking at over there?
yeah,
Old
yeah,
San
yeah,
Fran Bridge.
yeah.
Um, so I guess we'll start with our teams first because why not? And then
Mhm.
we'll move on to other notable slash notable fantasy cuts. Um, and then kind of just go from there. There's been some wild things that have happened. Um, Obviously NFL teams are they're cutting down to their 53 man rosters, and other teams are taking some of those other guys, signing them, putting them on practice squads, all those fun things. We'll start out with your guy, um, one that I'm happy about actually, kind of in a way. Um, Trey Sermon got cut from the
Mm,
49ers,
yeah.
right? Go ahead, drop it on me,
Um,
bro.
yeah. So I'd say he should have been cut in the first cuts. Honestly, like he's just not. I just think it might not be a very good scheme fit. He is super talented, big, strong, but he runs like he thinks he's a fast back. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah,
He,
yeah.
yeah, he reminds me a lot of this is going to be a mean comparison, but Trent Richardson,
Oh
where
my, yeah,
yeah, he has no vision. He in preseason there was one play where he literally ran into the back of the center and
yeah,
just fell down on the ground.
yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and and then you'll see holes and I can only see this because I'm comparing it to the other backs. For example, we found this diamond in the rough, a undrafted back named Jordan Mason from Georgia Tech, and he's a big old dude, same size as Sermon. But when he hits the hole, he hits the hole. Like he never gets less than 4 or 5 yards.
Yeah,
And with Sermon, you just kind of see him like dance around. Like he's very much like a Le'Veon Bell, like very patient. And so
yeah,
this is why I say maybe on another team, like say the Saints possibly, or some team that needs a
yeah,
good, strong backup, young running back. It's just the scheme fit, like the way the Niners run the ball. There's no, there's no time to be fancy. It's
yeah, yeah,
get the ball and hit the hole,
yeah, yeah. Hit the hole.
and yeah, and
I mean, maybe
and
maybe he could be on the Saints.
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a team tries him out. Like I
oh
said,
yeah,
I agree that the talent's there. He definitely
mm-hmm,
wasn't a good fit with the 49ers, and that was kind of self-evident even last year, right?
mm-hmm,
As he played, and I'll say this, like I spent, I'm in one dynasty league. I spent a first round draft pick on Trey Sermon, right?
mm-hmm,
But here's the thing. So I won a championship in that dynasty league, right? I took over I took over this dynasty team from a buddy of mine. He would make the playoffs, but he would fall short every year for like 3 years in a row.
mm-hmm.
So I took that bitch over the edge, brought a championship home, won some money, bought my buddy a 6 pack, saying, "Hey, thank you for the team." And I won, and the year after that, I was like, all right, I don't have any good running backs really. One of my wide receivers aged out. I had Travis Kelsey, and I was like, he's on the cusp. His value is at the highest peak it is. I had Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver, so I went and I traded Calvin Ridley for some first round picks. I traded
That's a good move.
Travis Kelsey for some first round picks. Um, I acquired Antonio Gibson for like I think two first round, maybe a first round pick and a player. I turned around and traded him for like 3 first-round picks, which
Mm.
if anybody knows about Antonio Gibson right now, I absolutely like
Stole that,
demolished
yeah.
demolished that trade. Between him and Calvin Ridley, I had 5 first-round picks. And
Wow.
so I traded up. Um, and so when I went into last year's draft, I had the number 4 pick, the number 6 pick, and the number 8 pick.
Mm.
Right. So I drafted Javonte Williams at 4,
Oh,
Trey
nice.
Trey Sermon at 6, and Jalen Waddle at 8.
Damn.
And
Okay.
I hit on Javonte and I hit on
Yeah.
Waddle. And Trey Sermon
Yeah.
unfortunately did not hit. But what I did in this offseason, because I made the playoffs last year, lost in the first round. This year I traded Trey Sermon for a second round pick.
Okay.
And you know what? 100% happy with that.
Yeah.
Because what happened was is I traded him in the offseason like a month ago.
Mm.
Maybe 2 months ago. Somebody was like, "Oh, maybe the upside, it's the 49ers, you know. You know how the 49ers are with running backs.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to be a star."
Yeah.
Um
Mm.
they just cut him. So the way I see it, okay, I downgraded from a
That's a
first
win,
round
yeah.
pick to second round pick. So I used that second round pick and another second round pick I had to go out and get Tony Pollard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I have Tony Pollard. Thank you, Trey Sermon. Look, I'm a wheeler and dealer, bro. When it comes to dynasty, I'm
Hmm.
always making trades. Uh, I might win it this year. We'll see what happens. I acquired Nick Chubb. I acquired Tony
Oh,
Pollard. Unfortunately, I did trade away Justin Jefferson, but I have DK Metcalf, I have Jalen Waddle, and I have Mike Williams.
okay.
And I went out and got my boy Dalton Schultz, and I
Okay.
got and
Yeah.
I got Dak Prescott.
Oh,
So my team's kind of
for a
banged.
guy who hates the Dallas Cowboys, you got
I
some Dallas Cowboys.
look, I hate the team. I respect Dak Prescott
Hmm.
as a good quarterback. I respect a lot of their players, right? I just don't like their team.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Um. So
So
one thing I want to say about Sermon, and you know what happens is not his fault, but he was like a big deal, in college, Ohio State and Oklahoma, and I think he kind of came in like lax, like, oh, I'm the guy, and then last year Elijah Mitchell, a 6th round pick, beat him out for the starting job,
yep,
and then this year now a it was between him or, like I said, to a guy named Mason who's an undrafted free agent, and
yeah.
he beat him out. And that's the thing that makes the Niners, special is I notice that some teams will hold on to a draft pick just because they were a high draft pick.
Yeah, I mean
But
he was a
sometimes
third
you
round
just
he
have
was a
to,
third round draft pick, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Sometimes you just have to go with the best, you know,
yeah.
fit or
Well,
best
look,
player that you
man, if
see.
if if you look at the 49ers running back history, they've had more success with undrafted free agents or late round draft picks than they
Yeah,
have with higher end round draft
top picks.
picks.
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean maybe that tells you something. Maybe it's like, hey,
yeah,
spend that third round pick on an offensive lineman or a
yeah,
defensive guy and look, we'll try to find talent at
yeah.
the end of drafts.
That's a big thing that has been talked about on Niners Twitter. And the only thing I say is, like, okay, I get that, but imagine if we hit on like a Derrick Henry because he was a 2nd round
Yeah.
pick,
Yeah.
or
Well,
Jonathan Taylor was a 2nd round pick.
so
Imagine an elite
if
back in this offense.
if you get but here's what I'm gonna say. If a team spends a first round pick or second round pick on draft capital,
Yeah,
um, on a running back, then I expect great things from that running back, right?
yeah, it
The
has to be
four
a hit. Yeah,
and I'll be honest with you, regardless of what you say about the 49ers, if they spend a second or first round pick on a running back, they're not cutting them after 1 year,
yeah,
right? I
mm,
think the the end of it, the line is that difference between a second round pick
okay,
and a third round pick, right? Sherman
yeah,
was a third round pick, so
yeah.
obviously, um, that's something we have to contend with.
Yeah.
Um,
it even hurts a little bit extra because we actually used a fifth round pick to trade up in the third round to get Sermon.
Ooh, that sucks.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that definitely
yeah.
sucks.
But again, yeah. But again, we got Mitchell in the sixth round, so I guess it don't really matter in the long run.
It traded
But
off pretty good if you ask me,
yeah,
right?
what I want to
Um,
talk about is what the hell happened with Gardner Johnson because I'm
okay,
mad,
so
bro.
we'll let's
The
we'll
Niners
get yeah
should have got.
we'll get to that real quick. Just we're gonna be talking about cuts, so I made a list of quote unquote fantasy relevant players. Since we're on the 49ers, I'll go ahead and say the only two players I saw that were quote unquote somewhat fantasy relevant, and I say that because I don't feel like anybody was really holding on to these guys. But
Yeah.
if you're in a dynasty league with a lot of other teams, 12 team, 16 team league, you might have held on to these guys in hopes that maybe they popped off and they didn't. The 49ers cut Tyler Croft at tight end,
Mm-hmm.
and which he was but I know some people who were kind of hopeful on him. The other guy was Willie Snead, who is a former Saints wide receiver.
Yes.
Um, Decent in PPR when he played for the Saints. Um, but he was one of those guys that Drew Brees just kind of made better, right?
Yeah.
There's an endless list of wide receivers who weren't really good, but Drew Brees made look good. Willie Snead was one of them. So while we're on the 49ers, I just wanted to point out those two
Uh,
play, those
I
two
was just
other
gonna say,
players. Go ahead.
I was say, I was upset because I think that one of the biggest flaws with the Niners, with like we're talking with George Kittle in our last episode, I'm trying to think is that we don't have a backup
Tight end.
receiving threat tight end. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, but then it just happened a few hours ago. But both of those guys have signed on to the practice squad of the
Yeah.
49ers. So
Yeah. And
yes, so
look,
got them both back.
they're not garbage players. They're just
No,
not great players. So
mm,
I'm happy that they got a job on the practice squad.
yeah,
You know, they obviously have potential, or at least they're
yeah.
good enough. So
Snead actually looked good, and I think he would have made the team if we kept six receivers. But because we're such a run first team, we instead kept nine offensive linemen and four tight ends instead of a six
yeah,
receivers.
yeah,
So
which
I
is
think,
fair. So
yeah,
all right,
um,
moving
yeah,
on to go ahead.
and I want to say, as a whole picture, I'm very happy with the cut because about everybody that we cut who was like, "Ooh, that sucks," uh, came back on the practice squad. Our whole draft class is either on our team or on the practice squad. So
Nice. Yeah.
I'm very happy with all that.
Yeah, well, that's what you want to see. You
Yeah.
definitely, when you go through a draft, you don't want to see anybody get cut and go somewhere else. You rather see them try to develop them, right? That means
Mm-hmm.
your GM's doing their job. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to the Saints and CJ Gardner Johnson.
Gardner Johnson.
And look, man, I love CJ Gardner Johnson as a personality. Dude got like 5 people ejected from games throughout his
Yeah.
career for just shit talking. He's a good safety. There's no
Yeah.
question about his talent. Um, Here's what I heard, right? I heard for the last week, CJ Gardner Johnson was not listening to coaches at all.
Oh,
He was being 100% uncoachable, right? Would not
wow.
talk to coaches, would not do what the coaches told him to do. He would walk around the facility and he would complain to everybody about his contract and how he wasn't getting paid like he should be getting paid. And look, the talent's there, but the Saints are very big on locker room personalities, right?
Mm.
Team players. Um, I'll point to this guy um, because I thought he was decent. Maybe like wide receiver 3 potential or whatever. But he had a bad locker room attitude. He was a locker room cancer, and the Saints initially let him go. Kenny Stills, who was on the
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins, right?
Under him, yeah.
Solid guy with Breeze. Obviously, he's one of those guys Breeze just kind of made better, but he had some talent. He could have been a PPR
Yeah.
guy, something like that. Like I
Yeah.
said, a wide receiver 3 flex guy.
A, a
Um,
strong three.
but bad attitude. locker room cancer, right? Wasn't a team player, all these other things. And I think what happened with CJ Gardner Johnson is um, if you're not going to listen to the coaches while you're there and you're a Saints player, if you're going to do is walk around and talk shit about the team and inflame and all this other stuff, the Saints don't want you, right?
Yeah.
Look, I get it. You want to get paid. Look, you should be aware of the cap situation. You should be aware of the
Yeah.
fact that the Saints are going to keep you on your contract and we'll see what happens next year, right?
Yeah.
You have other people we're paying right now. And you're replaceable. We went out and signed fucking Honey Badger. And if you think for one
Yeah.
second we won't play Tyrann Mathieu at safety in your spot, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
And I think all those things coupled together, and the Saints are like, look, if this is how you're gonna act, we don't want you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm sad that we didn't get more, but we don't have to pay him, so that's a
Yeah.
bonus. The
That
Saints
was
the Saints will get a 5th round pick and the worst of 2 6th round
a
picks
six.
for a
Yeah.
7th and CJ
Yeah.
Gardner
That's not
Johnson.
bad, really.
It's not it's
Honestly,
not it's
for
not terrible.
safeties.
Yeah,
Yeah. For
for a
safeties.
safety and the fact that he's still playing on his rookie contract essentially. Um,
Yeah.
but I think there's no question that he makes the Eagles defense better,
Yeah.
right? So, from an Eagles standpoint, I think they won. I think the Saints won too because like if a player is going to be a locker room cancer with the defense that we have, with the players we have, one of the reasons they're so good is because they're so tight knit, right? They're on the same page. They're friends with each other. They struggle together. It's not just a job, you know. They're they're a defense. They're together.
Yeah.
And if a player's not going to jive with that, I don't want them on my team.
No.
I don't want them fucking up the chemistry that the Saints defense has.
Mm.
So while I'm sad to see him going, like I said, I love CJ. I really do. Like I love the fact that he would get other players expelled.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We're talking. Um,
Mm.
but I understand why the Saints did what they did. So
Because wasn't he in that like memorable picture video where he's in like Tom Brady's face, basically. Like it was like on Sunday Night Football, and they beat the Buccaneers' ass. And I
oh,
swear he was like, yeah, right in Tom Brady's mouth.
100% he was.
Yeah, yeah. That's but I mean, you definitely can't have the Niners are super high on high character guys, and like we've passed on like possible good upgrade because we just don't like our locker room is so solid that we won't ever bring in a bad vibe.
Yeah, and like look, I have a profound respect for coaches like Bill Belichick, right? Who maybe you want to argue it's Tom Brady. Like, I think it was Tom Brady and Bill Belichick together,
Yeah,
and they had
same.
success together. Bill
I
Belichick is
agree.
an all business kind of guy, right? He holds those players to a professional high standard. That's great. It worked for him while he had Tom Brady. Obviously, right now we're kind of waiting to see how things happen outside of Tom Brady. Me personally, I would rather have a locker room that's on one page,
Yeah,
right? Professionalism's great, right?
Ex- especially say
But
it, it's a big deal with a new head coach. Say
yeah,
it was Sean Payton who was there. Maybe he could have figured it out, but with a brand new head coach, you can't have that kind of
I,
distraction.
I I agree. You need to be on the same page. And look,
Yeah,
I love the fact that Dennis Allen was our defensive coordinator. Now he's our head coach. Um, all that tells me is the Saints defense is going to be as good as it's been under him. Um,
better,
ever, right?
ever.
And and one of the reasons I think they did that, not that I'm doubting Dennis Allen's ability to be a head coach, I'm just saying they hired from within. They hired a guy for that position who is already has a good rapport with the team, has shown he's a great defensive coordinator. Um, you know, they did all that, and I value the cohesiveness of a team because as
Mhm.
professional as you can be, as by the book as you can be, I think if all your defensive players are of one mind and one body and they're going out there and they're playing for each other and they're having fun, I think you're going to get the best work out of them than you would otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And the Saints defense, you watch them last year, you watch them the year before, you talk to all the players that have played for the Saints and gone somewhere else, with the exception of Jimmy Graham, who talks shit because he was mad that he got traded. Um, every other player has said, I loved playing in
Good
New Orleans,
things. Yeah.
right? I love playing in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I love playing for the organization. I think we got Honey Badger not just because he was a hometown guy, but because of our organization, because of the locker
It
room
was a
we
good fit.
had. It was a great
Yeah.
fit. And I think a lot of players will come to New Orleans just to play with those people, to be
Hmm.
part of that community, right? That family, that Saints
Yeah.
family. And I can't say that with every team, and I'm
Yeah.
not bragging. Obviously, I'm a Saints fan. I might be a little bit biased, but like the Saints have one of the best locker rooms in the league.
Yeah. You can you know tell when a locker room is like very good or not. It's
Yep.
easy to tell in games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And I feel like all that's been extended to Jameis Winston. The locker room likes Jameis Winston. Michael
yeah.
Thomas was a part of that. They're taking Olave in. Landry's a Louisiana guy, right? He
Mhm.
played. We love him, and the locker room
Yeah.
took him in too. And I think we're going to see some great things. I think we're going to see
Yeah.
some great things from the Saints team.
There's there's also been some talk that OBJ might be interested in coming
I
when
mean,
he gets
look,
healthy.
if he heals up and he comes, the more
Yeah.
the merrier. I love to have four great wide receivers on the field because look, I love Landry, I love Olave, I love Michael Thomas. Go ahead and put my boy OBJ out there. We'll see what happens, right? Hopefully he
Yeah.
heals up and he does his thing. I'd be more than
Yeah.
happy, right?
They
Um,
they said that they're looking like week 6-ish, week
yeah,
8-ish, somewhere
yeah.
in there.
We'll see what
Uh,
happens. We'll see what
yeah.
OBJ is chasing at that point. If he's
A
chasing
few
money or if he's chasing wins. We'll see.
a, a ring, yeah. I think it's just a ring, but
Yeah,
I'll say a few bad injuries. I don't think we talked about Trevor Penning, the rookie Saints tackle who got
yeah.
hurt.
So he's got turf toe. Um,
Uh-huh.
as of right now, he's out. They don't have a timeline on when he'll be back.
Yeah,
That definitely hurts the O line. I really, really liked him, but we'll see. I think he'll be back before the year's out, obviously.
yeah.
Um,
For us, our I would say our most important player on defense, Jimmy Ward, has a pretty bad hamstring strain.
yeah.
Um, yeah, he's going to miss the first 4 games for sure, but it's sounding like probably 6 to 8. Is
Hmm.
going to be around the thing. So I mean, luckily we start out with some easier games: Bears, Seahawks,
Yeah,
but then we have the Broncos, Rams, Kansas City, back to back to back.
yeah. So
So
we'll see what happens, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, the only other mention for the Saints, Michael Thomas has a minor hamstring injury. I don't think it's a big issue. I think he's gonna play week one. He did not play in the preseason because of it. I think they're just resting him.
yeah,
We'll see how that goes. I'm not really worried about it, but I just wanted to mention it. Um,
yeah.
so I mean that's both our teams, right? Um, let's go. Any any
Any
any other specific?
yeah notable cuts off top of my head. Let's see. There was just a lot of quarterback shuffling.
A lot. Dallas cut like three
Yeah,
quarterbacks at least.
yeah. Right now, they only have Dak on the roster. He's the only
Yeah,
quarterback.
they'll get some others.
Um,
Obviously, you can't go into a game with one quarterback.
yeah.
So
In a bit of a shocking move, the Niners actually cut Sudfeld, who had guaranteed money, and we
yeah,
kept Brock Purdy. That was a shocker for everybody.
Maybe he just showed
Um,
some potential, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So
Nick
good. Mullins.
I'll say, yeah, Mullins got traded to the Vikings, and then the Vikings released Mond and they released Sean Mannon.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So I'll go ahead and start at the top of my list, and we can just kind of spitball back and forth after that. Um, the Bills' notable fantasy football cuts. All right, I'm not talking about cuts overall. Just this
yeah.
pertains to fantasy football. They cut OJ Howard. You know,
Wow.
a guy much thought to be extremely talented. The Buccaneers cut him, and then the Buccaneers cut him early on after
Yeah.
losing Gronk. They
Hmm.
still have Cameron Brate, but he went. The Bills signed him. Um, look, maybe OJ Howard isn't all he's cracked up to be,
Crazy.
right?
It's crazy.
Maybe he's missing something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. It
He'll
has to
probably
be
get
a
signed by another team,
yeah.
but
It has to be a mental thing because he's so talented, but he hasn't
maybe.
gotten it
So
together.
we're just. I'm just gonna say this. The Bills didn't need it, OJ Howard. They have Dawson Knox. That guy's a
True.
touchdown beast. I think he's going
Yeah.
to be really good. He's someone who I potentially thought about for my top five, but he's more like
Yeah.
7 or 8. Um,
Yeah.
but they didn't really need OJ Howard. I was surprised when they signed him. I was like, okay, maybe they just want a second guy who's solid, who could block. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously they like somebody else other than Dawson Knox.
I
Unfortunately,
guess
he
so.
he he is gone. I was surprised by that. But I will not be surprised to see another team sign him.
Somebody, yeah.
I think I saw a notification of some other team already looking to be interested in him.
Okay, yeah.
So
Off the top of my head, I was thinking Seattle. So I was like, oh,
Seattle, I mean
that would be
Jacksonville.
a good fit. Jacksonville, yeah.
Jacksonville could be one.
Yeah.
We'll see. Even the Saints could use them technically. We have
That
some
makes sense,
young
too.
tight ends, so we'll see. Other than that, the Bills also cut Duke Johnson. Obviously, in the past, maybe he was fantasy relevant. He's not really
He's kind
anymore,
of,
but
yeah,
it's a
over.
noticeable cut, right? Um,
Yeah.
my next on the list is the Bears. They cut James O'Shaughnessy. Um,
Okay.
he was not
Tight
really a
end, yeah.
huge fantasy guy, but he was a tight end.
Yeah.
He had a couple good games. People kind of got excited a little bit about him. But I think this is more of a deep dynasty league kind of fantasy thing.
Yeah.
I would let him go, right?
Hmm.
If he's getting cut, you don't really need to worry about it.
No.
Next up on the list, the Browns cut Josh Rosen, right?
Okay. The
He
great
played he
Josh
played for
Rosen.
what, the Cardinals, I think, before Kyler
Yep.
Murray came
And
along.
yeah, and
Uh,
then the Dolphins, then the
and then the Dolphins,
49ers,
and then the 49ers, and
and
then
then
ended up on the
I
Browns.
think the Brown. Yeah.
Look, man, obviously the guy's not that good. I think he can
No.
maybe be a QB3, somewhere
Yeah.
around there if you really need him. But I'm not surprised the Browns cut him. It is what it is. I don't really feel like that's a huge fantasy relevant thing, but
I just want to say, I think it was the draft. I think it was a draft with Baker and Josh Allen, and he was picked after them, and he was like, "I'm going to make every team regret for passing on me," something like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he
yeah.
has
And
he
now,
has not.
guess what? Nobody. Anyway,
Nobody.
the Broncos, the only noticeable cut, and I think he ended up on another team, was Divine Ozigbo. We saw flashes from him. He's a running back. Um, Turned out not to be very good. Um, it is what it is. The Broncos cut him. I don't really feel like that's huge, but
Yeah,
noticeable at the very least, right?
yeah.
Next up is a little more noticeable. The Lions cut Devin Funchess, who
Wow.
was a converted tight end, was a
Yeah.
wide receiver, but he was a hefty boy. Liked his McDonald's double cheeseburgers and got converted to tight end, and apparently not very good because the Lions of all people cut him. They
Yeah.
also cut former Chargers running back Justin Jackson. Um,
Wow. That guy. Wow. It's funny. I just remember a lot of Niners fans like wanting us to sign him so bad because he's like
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
he's he's
but
nice, but
apparently not, right?
yeah,
Okay, so next up on the list is the Texans, who cut Chris Connolly, who I believe was what a Chiefs wide receiver first,
yeah, I think
and
so.
he
Yeah,
ended up on the Texans. They cut him. Not that big of a deal, but this next one was actually kind of a shocker for many people. Marlon Mack got cut from the
yes,
Texans.
yeah,
Um, I I hate to see it because I really liked Marlon Mack. He was
yeah,
one of my maybe like deep fantasy running
yeah,
backs. Throw a flyer out there for.
yeah. I
All I can
think,
say is the injury, man. The injury must have
yeah,
affected him.
yeah,
Well,
that
Pierce,
too, and I
Damian
think
Pierce showing
I'll
up.
say, yeah, he was so good. I think they just wanted to give him like the vote of confidence,
Yeah,
like
I
here's a
mean,
guy.
even then they could have kept Marlon Mack as the RB2.
Yeah,
So
I think maybe it's possible that Mac is so good that they were doing him a favor, that like because he could be like a starter on
okay,
a
that's
other
possible. And
team,
look,
you know.
I wouldn't be surprised if Marlon Mack ends up on another team. I will say that.
Mm.
So, um,
I'm trying to think off top.
so
Any
for
team.
for my Saints, I'll say real quick, which I didn't have it on my list. They did cut Washington,
Oh yeah,
D
the
D
running back.
Washington, the third
Yeah,
running back. But he was a special teams guy. They decided
yeah,
to oust him. So I think the RB3 now will probably be Tony Jones Jr., which
hmm
I'm not saying is great, but
yeah.
just
But
notable,
that's why, yeah, that's why I had brought up Sermon. You know,
yeah,
he could be a nice
yeah.
three to
Yeah. Possible.
Ingram.
I'll see. We'll see what the Saints do. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
As far as running backs concerned, obviously the first is Alvin Kamara, the second is Mark Ingram. They're gonna have a
yeah,
third. The question is who? We'll
yeah.
see. All right. The Colts are next on my list. They cut Kiki QT. Um,
Oh wow,
he was kind of a PPR guy for the Texans.
yeah,
Not
he
great
was
in
nice,
fantasy, but he would get you 9 or 10 points.
solid. Yeah,
He was a solid guy. I'm kind of
nice
surprised they
flex.
cut him. Yeah, nice
Yeah.
flex. They cut him, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up on another team again. Um, this guy, kind of surprised, kind of not. Philip Lindsay used to be running back for the Broncos. The Colts cut him, so
It's just
obviously
surprising how fast he fell off. Like
injuries,
he was
man.
like a beast. Yeah.
Yeah, injuries do a lot. And then last but not least for the Colts, Tyson Williams, who played for the Ravens last year, had a couple
hmm
good games, but then just disappeared. I think he just got lucky for those couple games, and ended
Got
up
hot.
not being very good. It
Yeah.
happens, right? Next, I have the Jaguars. They cut Laquan Treadwell. He actually
He
made
just
some decent catches for him last year.
yeah.
But uh, who did the Jaguars just get? They just got a wide receiver, didn't they?
Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
They
So
just
so
yeah.
so they got Christian
But
Kirk. They
they
still have Marvin
yeah, but
Jones. They still have
and
uh.
they just traded away LaVisca Chenault
They traded
to the
away
Panthers.
Labisca.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I was
I mean,
surprised by that.
look, Laquan Treadwell drafted by the Vikings, ended up not being
Yeah.
very good. Traded to the Jaguars. Apparently, he didn't make the cut. I like Christian Kirk. I think he might be a
I
good
do
deep.
too.
He might be a good deep of a draft pick, right? If you can
Yeah.
get Christian Kirk in the eighth, ninth round, I think you're winning right there. I think he's
Yeah.
somebody
I
who could
actually
end up. He plays slot a lot, so I think he's somebody who can get you double digit points every week. Maybe only 10, but I think he could do it.
yeah. I was trying to make a deal with somebody for George Kittle, so I put in Waddle and Damian Pierce for Kittle, and I was like, oh, why don't you just throw in Kirk? And they're like, okay, I'm like, because I'm high on Kirk. I think he's going to be the number one guy there. So, because
Yeah,
everybody was bashing him because he was paid a crazy amount. Like, it's not his fault that the Jaguars paid him a lot of money. Like, he's so good. He just got crazy overpaid.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Okay. Next up on the list is the Chiefs. They cut Josh Gordon, perennial marijuana user. Look, man, if he could not do drugs, not get suspended, the talent's obviously there. Every time he's played, he's been good. He just has those issues. So,
the NFL doesn't test it anymore for marijuana. So
and they shouldn't. So we'll see what happens, right?
yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if
But
another
I think it's
team.
kind of past his prime now. I guess
Yeah, he probably is. So,
too late.
um, the only other noticeable cut by the Chiefs is Corey Coleman, ex
Okay,
Browns wide receiver. Nothing
not him.
special,
Yeah, but I
but
mean, he was special
for a little while,
come out of college.
yeah,
But he never put it together.
never was up to snuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Next up is the Raiders. They cut Kenyon Drake, who
And
was
he just signed
semi
with
fantasy. Who did he sign with?
Baltimore.
Okay. So he might
Yeah,
still be fantasy relevant. I don't
yeah.
really like him. I
He's
don't really plan on getting him.
he's actually looking to be the starter right now because J.K. Dobbins is
It's
hurt.
still looking to hurt. Yeah, but
So it looks like it's yeah.
I think Mike Davis might take that,
Mm-hmm.
and
They'll
it'll probably be a
probably
split
split. Yeah,
backfield.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
All right. So the Raiders also cut Keelan Cole, who was actually a decent PPR guy for the Jaguars.
yeah. He was nice.
Um, he was nice, 10, 11 points a week, something
I would
around
say
there.
the damn Raiders, the first round pick, Alex Leatherwood. Of course, it's not fantasy, but yeah, he was a first round pick offensive
Yeah.
lineman,
Yep.
and he's
Yeah.
gone.
A
He's
lot of
gone.
people talked about that. He wasn't very good
Yeah,
apparently. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas ends up with him. They're looking for
yeah,
some line. Maybe Tampa Bay. Who
and
knows? Um.
the Raiders also traded Trayvon Mullins to Arizona,
Yeah.
who was their other first round pick,
Yeah.
CB. That that whole the whole draft by the last front office was bad.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Last player for the Raiders, Demarcus Robinson, ex Chiefs wide receiver. Um. Honestly, still not good, even after
Yeah.
Mahomes. So it is what it is. All right. Next is one of Paul's teams, the Dolphins. They cut
Hey,
they cut Sony Michelle. Which hey, it is what it is.
yeah.
Um,
I, I liked him, but Mostert and Edmonds
yeah,
were the
yeah,
best in
yeah.
preseason. So
They needed to get that backfield a little bit uncrowded, right?
yeah.
So also they cut Preston Williams, wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
A little surprising. He showed flashes, but
I liked him, but since we got
they have
Tyreek
Waddle, they
Hill, I
have
guess.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't need him.
yeah.
They also cut Mohamed Sanu. Nothing special there.
From the Niners to the Dolphins.
Yep.
Said.
Next is the Patriots. This guy I pretty much put on the list simply because he was an ex-Saint wide receiver. I liked him. Little Jordan Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
Not terrible.
Yeah.
You know, mostly just there because he was an ex-Saint, and I really wanted to see him do good because he showed flashes of good play. He just couldn't meet. The only other two guys on the team are running backs, and I put them simply because you have a less crowded running backfield, which is nice for the Patriots. Uh,
Mm.
J.J. Taylor got cut, and Kevin Harris. So,
Yeah. All the reports from them sound like Stevenson is going to be the
yep.
new guy in town.
Well, I
Yeah.
drafted him in the Vampire League that we have together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being that White retired, I think you're going
Mm-hmm.
to see Damian Harris getting the running downs work, and you're going to see Ramondre Stevenson getting the passing downs work.
Yeah.
And maybe one has a better year than the other. I don't know. You know how the Patriots are when it comes to running backs. You just can't
Yeah.
trust anything they do. Um, Next is the Jets. and the only pick they had that they cut that's fantasy relevant is Tevin Coleman, who you might know of because he was
Yeah,
a 49er and they paid him a good bit of money to be a 49er, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
Um, they just
and
cut him.
and then and then last year the Jets actually paid him a pretty solid amount for
Yep,
a running back. I think it was like
yep,
7 million.
yeah, so somewhere around there. But
I
look,
guess
the Jets have
it's
Brees
crazy.
Hall. The Jets have Brees Hall. They have
Yeah,
their other running back. What's his
Michael
name?
Carter,
Michael Carter. Uh,
Michael Carter. Yeah,
and from what I heard so far, Michael Carter is still the RB1.
yeah,
And Brees
that's
Hall
what
is
I
the
heard.
RB2.
Yeah,
Which I obviously think that Brees Hall is probably going to take that job eventually, but I think the Jets will have a split backfield. They will share carries. Robert, what's his name, Saleh, or however you say it,
yeah,
was the 49ers defensive coach. Um, and I think it's his style to kind of, I think what's his name, Shanahan rubbed off on him a little bit. Hey, we can
yeah,
we can alternate backs. We don't need one
yeah.
guy. We can use a couple of guys, and I think that's kind of what's gonna
Also,
happen.
the Niners, no, the Jets offensive coordinator was the Niners running game coordinator, and he's
Oh,
also
was he?
the
I didn't know that.
yeah, and he's also the brother of the Packers head coach LaFleur, or his name's Pat LaFleur, I think, or something. He's just a something a floor. So yeah, uh, but yeah, I think that the Jets are a sleeper better than people expect team as long as Zach Wilson is gonna be back and
Well,
not miss
look,
that many games.
I'll put it this way. I think Joe Flacco can game manage that team.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I don't think their defense is gonna be that great, but
yeah,
obviously,
but
when Robert Saleh took over the team, he was starting from scratch essentially. Um,
yeah.
it's
So
gonna take
far,
him some years. It's gonna take him 3 or 4 years,
yeah.
right?
So far, the news on Sauce Gardner is he's been everything that they hoped him to be. So
Yeah,
if he's a shutdown guy, that would be nice.
yeah.
And
Well,
that,
I
hey,
hope so for
look at
him.
a. I just want to say, what other sports podcast can give you uh, in-depth New York Jets, talk? We're the best podcast around. They can talk about
Look,
any
bro,
team.
we won't hold the Jets' history against them, right? I like Sella though. I liked him as a defensive coordinator. I liked when he went to the Jets. I understood that it's gonna take him a few
A
years
build.
to
Yeah.
build this team up, and he's slowly doing it. We'll see what happens. The Jets probably still won't be a good team this year. That's fine.
The the last 5 games last year, nobody really talked about it, but Zach Wilson actually went like insane. Like he struggled bad. He got hurt and then he came back. And the last 5 games, he was putting up a big number. So if
Yes,
he can come back and yeah,
definitely,
that'll be nice.
definitely. We'll like I said, we'll see what happens. The point is, what I want to see from the Jets is, being Sella was a defensive coordinator and a good defensive coordinator. Um, I want to see him build up that Jets defense, right?
Yeah.
He's got Brees Hall, he's got Michael Carter, he's got the run game, right?
Mm-hmm.
O line's not great, but not abysmal. It's okay. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to see that defense be good. Then the run game's there. So let's put these
Yeah.
pieces together. You're hoping Zach Wilson takes a step up. Once that happens, then we can get the wide receivers going, which they have at least one good wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
What's his name? Why can't I remember his name?
I was just thinking, I was like, don't they have a decent receiver?
They
I don't
have
know.
one good defensive receiver. I'm pretty sure didn't they trade their tight end, the guy who
Yeah.
was supposedly good. Man, why can't I remember his name? Let's see if I can find out. I know I can find out, but I feel like I should know it because he's a guy that I'm willing to draft in leagues because
Yeah.
I think he'll actually be good. Um, let's see. Well, that's not how you spell wide receiver. Sorry, folks.
Hey.
Uh, okay, Elijah Moore. There we go. Real simple.
Yeah.
Don't know why I
Yeah.
didn't get that.
Oh
Look.
yeah.
First off,
What I'm about to say is.
I would like to see Denzel Mims be traded. I think he might be good on
Hmm.
another team. But I do think Elijah Moore will be a top 24 wide receiver. So,
That's possible.
you're
Oh
hoping
yeah.
for.
Oh, what are we
Go
thinking?
ahead.
They drafted a
Garrett
Jamison.
Wilson. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
yeah.
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was nice in Ohio State. He's a very good like. He's not flashy, but he's a very good like runner and like hands. He's a good
Yeah.
possession receiver. So I
Yeah.
think he could. It's a nice
Yeah. So
duo.
they still have Corey Davis on that team. I don't really care for
Okay,
him very much. Uh,
decent. Yeah,
I would like to see him go bye bye, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Um, I can't remember the name of the tight end they had that was actually good,
uh,
or we thought
what
would
wasn't
be
like
good.
it wasn't like Hernon or
Yeah,
Herdon
Chris
was his.
Herndon, Chris
Yeah,
Herndon. There we go. I forget what team he's on now. Maybe it's the
I
Browns.
would say yeah. I don't know what happened to him.
So he's on another team now.
Yeah.
Um, I like Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore will be a top 24 wide receiver. He's somebody you should grab in your drafts as a flex option, and at a flex option, he would be a great value. Um, we'll see what happens with Garrett Wilson. Not a fan of Corey Davis. I think Braxton Berrios is a decent.
Oh, he's nice.
He
Yeah.
he's a PPR guy. Like he's someone who can get
Yeah.
you 5 for 50. Um, I don't know how much work he'll get, being that Elijah Moore has shown that he's number one capable
Good
for
guy.
that
Yeah.
team at least. And with Garrett Wilson coming in, I think a lot of it just depends on quarterback play. I think Joe Flacco is a veteran quarterback. I think he can feed Elijah Moore enough to make him fantasy relevant. But as far as Garrett Wilson's concerned or Braxton Berrios, I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see. Um, I think that's enough about the Jets. Surprisingly,
Yeah.
I didn't think I would talk that much about the Jets. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's pretty interesting. The last team on my list, as far as fantasy football is concerned, is the Seahawks cut Freddie Swain, which I don't think anybody was interested in him all that much,
Yeah.
but I heard his name before. I know people who got him in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Drop him. He's not worth
Yeah.
the roster
He
spot.
he had shown some nice flashes
Yep.
in San Francisco, and then they cut him and hoped that they were going to put on the practice squad, but
Yep. But then
Seattle
Seattle
swiped
signed
him
him.
up.
Yep.
But then he
Well,
hasn't really
he's
done
cut
much.
now. There you go.
Yeah.
And then last but maybe not least, also for Seahawks, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who was an
Mm,
ex-Eagles wide receiver, I believe.
yeah.
Um,
He was
he
originally on Arizona. No, that was Isabella. Yeah.
okay.
Eagles. Eagles. Yeah,
S-
Eagles. Eagles.
So he's gone.
Yep.
That's about it. If you didn't hear a player that you think is fantasy relevant, let us know. You can email us. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Send us some comments. Those were just the ones that I mentioned that I saw on the cut list. And then I looked for specifically. That might not be all of them.
Yeah.
Also, there's still a couple weeks until regular season, so there could be players that get traded, get bumped up to the 53 man roster that
Oh
make
yeah.
the practice squad. So I mean, keep your ears out. Obviously, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see Marlon Mack end up on a different team.
Yeah.
We talked about
Uh,
Kenyon Drake ended up on a different team, and
there's it it's important to watch everybody's practice squad this year because they changed the rule where now you get to bring up three people from the practice squad every week to the active roster.
yeah,
So if there's somebody on that practice squad that you might think might go crazy, you never know.
yep.
You never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Other than that, are there any other injury injured players or any other fantasy football news?
Um, yeah, just the Saints releasing Ian Book was a
That's
bit
right.
surprising for
We
me.
forgot to talk about that.
Yeah.
So here's what I see about that. I watched Ian Book in the preseason. Against the Chargers, he didn't do that bad. Um, but other than that, I mean, the first two games he threw more interceptions than touchdowns.
Mm,
Um, while he did show some deep passing ability, his decision making and field view was not good.
mhm.
And I'm not saying he can't be developed.
Yeah.
But
Um,
what I am saying is what the Saints decided to do was say Jameis Winston is number one,
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, Mr. Red Rocket himself is number two, and Taysom Hill will be tight end QB3. Is
Yeah.
no, and by that way they create a whole nother roster spot for somebody else.
Not long after he was cut, the
Eagles
Eagles
picked them up.
picked him
Yep.
up. Yeah.
Yep. The Eagles are just taking
Um,
all of our players we don't want, and
yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. The Detroit Lions helped out the Niners because when we cut Sudfeld, we were on the hook for $2 million, but because they signed him and are paying him 1.5 million,
Yeah.
we're only on the hook for like
For
five
half.
hundred thousand. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I like
So
it. Hey,
that's
that's 1.5 in your favor, right? That's what I'm saying. So,
yes, yeah. It's
other than
oh,
that, see, I can't really remember any other major injuries. Deshaun Watson, I don't know if we talked about him last episode. He basically made a plea deal with the NFL
yeah.
for 11 games and what
Hmm.
5 mil I think 5 million.
Yep.
Uh and that's it. Um I don't want to get too political on that. I don't want to say that he was definitely guilty. Anything like that, he probably was, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
He's not
It
gonna.
was it was 6 games at first, and then the
It
NFL
was
stepped
it
it up
was
to
six
11.
games, and the NFL.
Yeah,
Well, the NFL. Roger Goodell was looking for a whole season,
a whole
right?
season. Yeah,
Um,
and
here
Watson
here
was like,
here's the
oh,
problem with that. First off, I understand that the players association agree to the all the rules and everything else, but it doesn't make sense to me to have an independent judge make a ruling and then Roger Goodell to basically be like, you know what, I don't like that ruling, so I'm gonna overturn it myself, and then I'm going to appoint a judge that I like to make a new ruling, and
yeah,
that's what we're gonna go by, right?
yeah.
And
And
the other
I
thing to
just
that,
think,
go ahead.
honestly, I just think that there's no way anybody was gonna be happy. Like it was either gonna be there's gonna be some people who would say it was too many games if you have to spend the whole year because technically he hasn't been held, proven guilty of anything, in
Anything
the
at all.
court of law. Yeah, so there's that, and then but it's just a shame that you see that like Calvin Ridley got suspended a whole year for betting on a game, which I understand that's against the rules, but is that worse than what Deshaun Watson possibly did? It's weird.
Possibly. So, well, I don't know. So the problem with the NFL is they haven't been very um
Consistent.
I can't necessarily I can't even say consistent. All I can say is the things that they value or view as deserving more games over other things doesn't make sense. Like
Mhm.
I could give two shits about gambling on a game if somebody's raping someone, right? Which
Yeah,
look, I'm not saying Deshaun Watson did that. Deshaun Watson, even his accusations wasn't like rape. It was
all right.
basically
Yeah,
it was sexual
he was being weird.
misconduct, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe he was asking for things that he shouldn't have asked. Is that
touching himself. Yeah,
maybe? Is that
yeah.
terrible? I don't know if it's
Mhm.
terrible. I'm gonna say it's pretty. You should. It's things you shouldn't do,
It's weird. Yeah.
right? So, but the point is the NFL. So what would have happened was if Roger Goodell would have went for a full season ban, Watson would have sued them.
Yeah.
And if he would have sued them, then it would have brought up all of the previous NFL's rulings on sexual misconduct and
Yeah.
rape and the games that those players got, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's players who were convicted of rape that only got like 6 games. So
Mm-hmm.
how can you give Deshaun Watson 11 games and he didn't even rape anybody? He just had sexual misconduct with one person because he settled with all of the other people apparently. Um, I think what happened was is Roger Goodell didn't want to air out his dirty laundry.
Yeah. I just have a
So
whole.
so Deshaun Watson was like basically like, hey, I won't sue you. Let's just agree on 11 games. I'll pay you $5 million because I'm getting $250+ million anyway, and let's just throw this all under the rug. I can play this season. It won't affect my contract next year. Let's do that. And the NFL
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, let's do that. Right? And everybody got to save face, and everybody got to say, hey, I did something, and they moved on. Um, whether you think that's right, whatever you want to say, look, I need evidence to make an opinion, right? I don't want to get
Yeah.
political. All I'm gonna say is if Deshaun Watson did wrong, I hope he pays that price. If he
Yeah.
didn't do wrong, then I hope he doesn't have to pay that price. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm gonna leave it. Um,
Agreed.
other than that, look, bro, week 12, week 13, whenever Deshaun Watson comes back, Amari Cooper gonna look good.
Yeah.
So fantasy wise,
uh,
playoff
I just want to
push.
say. I just want to say. I mean, maybe it won't be that way, but damn, Watson looked terrible in preseason.
He did. He definitely did. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't have any shares in Deshaun Watson, so I don't really have to worry about him. Um, I'm not gonna really draft him either way, so it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. Um,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it really matters, right? I don't think he
Yeah.
was really trying. I don't think the team was running any plays that benefited him. I think
Yeah.
everybody knew he was gonna get suspended, so
It was what it was.
there was no reason for him to do anything,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, there you go. So we'll see what happens on that front. Don't draft Deshaun Watson. Just if you really want him, just wait till week 9 or 10, a couple weeks before his suspension gives up, and go out and grab him off of free agency. Because I
Yeah.
don't think anybody's gonna pick him up. Um, other than that, Amari Cooper or Browns players other than Nick Chubb, which I think he'll do fine. Um, wide receiver wise, tight end wise, maybe for a playoff push. You know,
Yeah.
let's say Deshaun Watson comes back and lights it up. Amari Cooper could win you your playoffs. It's possible.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But Amari Cooper's price tag might be a little too high for you to wait all season for him to do that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Obviously. I'm not fading Amari Cooper if I can get him at a decent value, but
Like a
like
flex.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I really want him is a flex, like
Yeah.
that, or on my bench as a replacement guy for bye weeks. I don't think he's gonna be terrible. I just think that he'll be wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
So
I actually like Brissett. I think that he's going to do better than like people expect, but
he's just a game
I
manager,
want to draft him.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a super safe quarterback who's not going to take risk, and he's going to run
Yeah.
the ball. So
Hmm.
I don't, I agree with the idea that Amari Cooper's probably going to get 8 to 10 targets a game,
Yeah.
but because of Brissett's ability and also Amari
Yeah.
Cooper's infrequency,
Yeah.
I think it
Maybe
could
four or
be
five catches.
4 or 5 catches a game. Maybe he has
If
eight
that.
catches. He might have 7 or 8 catches some games against
Yeah.
bad teams, but like you're hoping that on 5 catches, he breaks out for a big play or he gets a touchdown or something like that. It's really, really hard to want to play him every week. So,
Hmm.
other
I
than
feel
that,
you.
we'll keep y'all updated if any more cuts come out. We're getting very, very close to the regular season, so we'll try to get us 2 more episodes next week. I
Yep.
don't know what they're going to be on. Maybe start sits
Yeah.
for week 1. We're going to pick our
Yeah.
winners and losers.
I was thinking we could do pick 'em,
Yeah,
just pick, you know, and some
yeah,
losers.
yeah. So I mean, there's going to be 16 games coming up,
Yeah.
so we can definitely pick the winners and losers of
Mm,
those. Say who we think is going to win the matchups.
yeah.
Then we can pick fantasy relevant players that we think that you need to buy that week. Maybe some players we think you
Yeah.
need to sell that week. Look, if you're playing the Saints defense,
Justin Fields.
yeah, yeah, maybe you don't want to start that
who
guy.
the who the Saints open up against?
I don't even know, to be honest with you. Let me look. Look, bro, I haven't paid attention to their schedule because I was like, once the regular season starts, I'll be so neck deep into it that
Yeah.
like it won't matter.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of know. I'm pretty sure it's a division team. So let me look. Let's see. Schedule.
Falcons.
Because I feel like the first 2 games of the Saints season is normally against like a division rival. So yeah, Falcons.
Okay.
So we play the Falcons
Dub.
first, and then
Dub.
yeah, exactly. And then we play the Falcons first, and then we play Tampa Bay after, and
Uh-oh.
then
Okay.
the Panthers after that. So I was right. So
Oh,
like first
straight up.
first
Yeah.
first 3 games is division. So
Okay.
that's why I wasn't very worried about it because I was like, oh, Falcons
Yeah.
week 1, we should get the dub. If we
Yeah.
don't, I'll be extremely sad and worried,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you'll see it reflected in the episode that follows. That being said, um, episodes coming up, we'll do start sits, we'll do winners losers. Um, man, I'm ready. I'm just ready for the regular season.
Yes.
I'm so ready for
Absolutely.
football to start. So, with that being
Absolutely.
said, this is Fantasy Ambush. We just did our NFL roster cuts. I am Trevor Blanchard, one of your hosts,
And I'm Paul, the other host.
and we hope you have a good night. Listen for us. We will be pushing out more episodes, and catch us on YouTube. We're on Fantasy Ambush on YouTube officially. Check it out. Y'all have a good night.